Welcome to the Attract, Sell, Nurture podcast. My name is Case Dean, and on this podcast, we celebrate the power of service businesses and their ability to change our world. So join us for insightful conversations with innovative service business owners and entrepreneurs who are making waves within their industry. We are going to delve into their experiences, their triumphs, their challenges, their inspirations, their motivations, and the difference that they are making in the lives of the people that they care about the most. So whether you're a business owner yourself or passionate about making an impact, this podcast is for you. It's more than just business. This is about using business to transform lives and our world. So tune in and be inspired by their stories and their insights on service business and societal transformation. Let's get into this episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Attract, Sell, Nurture podcast. Today, I am so happy to have Ashton, John. I'm super excited. Um, um, I'm so happy to have Ashton John here today with me. This guy I met at one of my brother's Our House events. He was there with somebody else I interviewed for the podcast, Anthea Amar, another amazing bright spark. And there was just something about Ashton, who I've now known as Ash. But there was something about him and the little bit we talked about to do with his story, which you'll hear more about during this episode. And I just had to interview him. So first of all, Ash, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your time.
Our
Yeah.
pleasure. Thanks for having
Um,
me.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
no
do a
worries.
little bit of introduction of who you are for everybody listening. So Ashton John, MA, yeah, because I caught that bit in the information you sent over. Yeah, is a documentary
Got it.
filmmaker with a strong background in short films and branded documentaries. His work has been commissioned by renowned clients like The Barbican, London Borough of Culture, which I've never heard of. So we'll talk about that. Netflix and various festivals. Don't be
Mhm.
shy. What festivals? And has been screened on prominent channels like Channel 4 and ITV. Come on. Ashton is also the founder of Ashton John Films, Real Things. If I want to know about what's going on in those brackets there. His flagship project is
Mhm.
called the Home Film Project, which is a series of short films exploring the lives of residents of various London boroughs. And I say, if am I all right in saying that? Because I've pimped it a little bit based off the stuff that I got off the website, because I know that the website is when you first started it with the first lot of films being in Waltham Forest, was it?
Well, that's the second lot. The first
So
lot was
every
actually in
time you're doing it,
Hackney,
it's
where I was
changing.
the
Is
first.
it on the front? Okay, got it. So at
Yeah,
the
yeah,
cool. Right, perfect. So before we get into the home project and your work,
yes.
you're a documentary filmmaker, and to be fair, I haven't met one before you today, and I don't think a lot of the listeners would be um, all in a situation of saying, "Yeah, of course, my cousins." Are, It's not one of those things that I think over the years has been something people know about. Documentary filmmaker Richard Attenborough, right? It would be so far removed, but they'll know about it. So I want to
Yeah.
understand, how did you get into documentary filmmaking as opposed to any other kind of filmmaking?
Yeah, it's a good question. Um, I would say that when I was studying, originally I went to Ravensbourne, and that's where I studied like a broadcasting BA. And we had options. You know, like there you had like a menu of different industries that you could go into and just train up and learn a bit more. And so in my third year, that's when I was like, oh, actually I want to try doing factual, I want to try and do documentary. And so I went off and made my first like proper doc, which was about trainers, and it was about people who were collecting trainers. And it was really interesting because I got taken into that world of people who had stacks and stacks of trainers who knew all the little details and everything about it. And it was like a community. It was like this world that I'd never seen before. But the camera allowed me to go into that world. And where I have an interest in people, I just loved it. I thought it was super cool. And that film done really, really well. I was like very proud of it, but was also something that was like, oh, wow, I do like people. And this is actually like a medium that I can use to get me to connect to people and really allow them to share their stories and so on. So that was like the first thing. And then from then on, I kind of, after leaving, started doing it independently, was able to kind of grab a camera and go off and start making films. But the thing is that I love people. That's
So when you're
basically
saying in
it.
your third
Yeah.
year, and then you had to choose a specialization, and you chose factual, yeah, but why?
Yeah.
What was it that made you think,
Ah,
let's do this? And what were the choices you had in front of you, and why did factual stand out as a choice?
so the choices I had in front of me would have been like studio entertainment, drama, things like that. And I just felt studio entertainment is not wasn't my thing. Um, Drama, I don't. It's really weird. Like I would find at that time, it was difficult for me to sit and watch a drama that didn't feel real. Like it needed to have this realism to it. And I found that the stuff that I was gravitating to was more things that felt real. So I was watching one of the shows that I used to love back in the day was like The Real World, which was on MTV,
Okay.
and then MTV Diaries and things like that. I used to really enjoy that because it just felt very
When you're saying
uncontrolled.
you're
The
saying that about the
subject,
real world, I don't think there's a certain age group because we have to show our age now. But I think there's a certain age group that if you were to explain real world, you would turn around and say it was reality TV, but it was a different kind of reality TV because it was reality TV for real, for real. Whereas the reality TV that most people know is
yes.
actually scripted.
That's right. That's right. And it was seven strangers, wasn't it, that was placed into a household in various locations around the world, and then they would just tape them for like 6 months or so, and then they had like a video diary and stuff. But I felt like that was such a great insight into people and then being on camera and their worlds, their lives, everything that was going on. I always was gravitated. Always just found it quite interesting, and that was the kind of things that I wanted to make. And I think when I was back at doing that BA, everything else, I don't know, didn't connect with me that way. I wanted to connect with people. I didn't want to tell them, oh, here's a
Okay,
script and
okay.
go and,
So there's a di-
yeah, I
there's
wanted
a part
to,
of the filmmaking which is taking people almost like raw materials and turn them in something else. And then your thing at the end of the day is you just wanted to focus on the raw material itself. That was the art. That was
yes,
it. That needed to be captured. It
yeah,
didn't need any filter or any
definitely.
enhancement. You wanted its source material. Yeah,
More of that. I
yeah,
wanted more of the filter. You know,
yeah,
not
yeah.
things filtered. I wanted things to be
Unfiltered.
like,
Yeah.
real and raw if
If we
possible.
go back
Yeah.
then, because everybody, I used to, growing up, I've watched a lot of celebrities of people, famous people talk about. I always found it weird. They talk about someone will say to them, "When did you get started?" And they'll be like, "A singer." Oh yeah, I started singing when I was 2. It was the first time I picked on the mic. It's like, chill out. That's not where we're gonna start from. Like when you were 2, I was just singing and blah. No, it wasn't then. And I think it's at a point where it's beyond it being something that has been given to you and you make a decision to do it, right? Because when you're a child and someone puts a mic in your hand and you sing, that's not it. You don't even know what you're doing. You're kind of like just performing for the crowd. But for you, for me, I find it such an interesting profession you've gone into. It's not a typical profession. So can you take me back to how you got on the road to Ravensbourne? How did that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How did that happen? So, before that, I studied like sitting this intern. I studied photography. I studied a BTEC back in the day, which was media. That's what I done, and it was interesting. It introduced me to kind of like how I could shoot, how I could edit stuff, and this is going way back. But things were a little bit different back in the day. You couldn't like
Right,
do it on your phone. Like you had to
right.
go on a big computer and go and do all of that and understanding that process. And then also I felt like the photography element of as well that really showed me like how to capture life. And I feel like that for me was interesting because some of my work that I had there was just me being observant or me actually going to like approach people and take pictures of them that way. And like I was very interested in that, like just framing people
These are
in a
these
lens
are
or trying
people
to
that
tell
you
a
don't know.
story.
So you've made
Yeah,
you've made, if I may, you've made a career of being able to
yeah,
make, not made a career, it's helped your career, I should say. But you somehow have an innate ability to see somebody, know there's something in them, make a quick connection with them, and then move quickly to be able to capture whatever that is, whether or not it's photography or video. It's that. Is that fair to say?
yeah. That that is definitely fair to say, and actually, that's how it played out in the work that was to come after I left college and after I studied at Ravensbourne. That was the thing that I
Was there
continued to
anything
do.
in the
Yeah,
beginning, if around the City in Islington period of your time, was there anything that you can tell me about where you were hesitant about reaching out to people in that way, going up to strangers, or have you always had that to a certain? I think for certain people it would be bravery, but because the more and more we've got into tech, I find the more and more people aren't very good at connecting with other people. They're so used to having a
yeah, that's
barrier
true.
between them and the rawness. What you talk to me for? It's a lot of stuff. And for some of us growing up, it wasn't always that. It was actually part of an adventure was meeting people because, like you're saying, we didn't have phones. It was in person a lot. So,
Yeah,
did you ever have a period of
yeah,
time when you were forming these skills where you had to go over a barrier, or was it always something natural to you that you just?
yeah. It's an interesting one. I would think the photography side of it allowed me to explore that and allowed me to feel confident to go to approach people, because I remember even doing the photography work, I did have to
Sure.
just approach people on the street and just talk to them and make them feel comfortable, find out a little bit who they were, and
And it
then
wasn't
take a
because you were
picture.
trying to get them to be a model
Um,
or trying to get them to buy an expensive portrait pack with their family.
because I was generally interested in them, and the look or the vibe that they gave was like, I need to capture this because
Yeah,
there's something about you. And I feel like it always kind of was this thing where I wanted to give, you know, how can I say it? It's like I wanted to give the lens. I wanted to take a picture and create a platform and go, okay, here, this is you. Like this is the way that I see you, and I know that there are other people who will look at this image and will see you, and it makes them feel a particular way. It was something like that where I just like
yeah.
to elevate people with the camera,
So you
basically. Yeah.
before sitting in Islington, take me back. Let's start from secondary school. Yeah, let's start from
Oh
secondary
wow.
school. But the thing is, I met up with Anthea yesterday. Actually spent a day like I think she was like, "Case, you told me we're in a co-working space. You've had me here chatting all day, and I've hardly done any work. It's just the way I am." But I was speaking to Anthea yesterday, and she was talking to me about a talk she's doing, which is to help women speak up. And I was saying to her that I think for women and also just for people in general, a lot of the problems we can have when it comes to speaking up or representing ourselves or articulating ourselves or speaking or whatever it is, it stems from school. It stems from school. Something happened at
Yeah,
school that actually affected how the
yeah,
person is. Now, I'm not talking to you because about this because I want to bring up stuff that you had to overcome because I don't doubt for a moment that there was stuff you had to overcome, but I also feel like was there things that happened to you from secondary school onwards that actually helped you become the person that you are today?
definitely. During school, I think when I was younger, say about 11, I remember I was watching TV and I saw this acting school, which was in Islington.
Mayans.
It wasn't far away from school. And it looked really cool. It was just like on a kids show, and I thought, oh yeah, this is great. And I remember saying to my parents, like, I want to go to this. Like this, there's something here. I want to go. And so they got me to go, but it took me a while to get there because the waiting list was like a year and a half or something like that. And so when it did come through for the invitation, I was like, what was this? But Anna Shears
Cool.
was that place, and Anna Shears for me was basically a drama club that happened at the end of school. I would go off on a Wednesday, go all the way down to Islington Angel, and then be able
So
to
well, hold
kind
on. You're
of
saying going away to Islington. Where were you traveling from?
I was traveling from
Ah,
Hackney.
okay.
So originally, I, me, and jump on that bus and get me down there. It was funny because there was someone else in my school that also went, so it was me and Jermaine that would go, and we would spend like 2 hours there. And this is where the confidence was installed in me, the way that I talk, being able to direct, being able to be clear. Anna Shears was like that place, and there was many individuals that had come from there. But I understood from going to Anna Shears that there was something in me where I just like to kind of present, but also when it came to stories and that, I was very good at writing plays and being able to direct people. And most of that time, I wasn't really acting. To be fair, I was more like
Mm.
writing and directing plays. There was always an opportunity within the term time to actually present, one of the theatre shows, and that was something that I done really well at. But I understood at that point that acting wasn't necessarily for me, but it did install the confidence in me. It gave me an opportunity to come out of my zone where I was in Hackney and then be in this place where I could express myself and be confident, and be able to be
Did
creative.
you did you,
Basically,
did so
it's really cool.
if you had all of that from going to Anna Shears, if from before you went and when you were at school in Hackney, what was it
Yeah.
like for you then? Because you're talking about gaining confidence to be able to speak up. Did you not have that already, or was it something that was improved upon, or what was the?
I think in terms of like the arts and just being creative in general, it was something that I wasn't sure how I could express my creativity. Like I didn't know what format it was going to be. Was it going to be music? Was it going to be me drawing and stuff? Because I was very good, like drawing when I was younger. I used to like look at things and just draw them, and I always had like a skill that way. So I was always creative, but it was for me to find what part of the creativity I was going to flourish in, and I think that just helped me to kind of go, well, no, you could try this out. Yeah, give that a go, and be confident in it. It's like, if I wanted to write a play, cool, I can do it. Nothing's going to stop me. I can't have that doubting in my mind going, oh no, like what are other people going to say? No, because I was in an environment, and Anashi has done that for me to make me feel confident, make me feel like, oh yeah, cool, I can go and improvise, I can go and write a play, and I don't have to worry about what anyone else is going to say about it, because it just gave me that
It was
confidence to
it,
go
it's
off
interesting because, like
and
I
do
say,
that as well.
I grew up in Islington, and that's where I spent like all of my childhood, and went to school up in Highgate, which was the next um, borough down. But with Anna Shears, when I was growing up, and for drama and things like that, it was always seemed to be something that the white kids did. It wasn't something that the black kids did. So for you coming
Yeah,
from Hackney, the Hackney of old, was there any?
yeah, classic, I think.
Did you feel any kind of any pressure or stress? Was it something that you were proud about talking about? Was it something you kept to yourself? What was, because it doesn't seem like
Mm,
for me. I know it not to be. I'm not even asking you. It was not a standard flex for most people to be taught about going to drama school.
yeah, yeah,
it,
exactly. And it was
it just wasn't.
for real because it wasn't a thing. Oh, what did we have? We had play center. Do you know what I mean? And like after school club or whatever. And what were we doing there? We were basically like either playing football or playing computer games, whatever it would be. But it wasn't anything of
No.
the arts like that. And I think that's what Anna Shear's done for me. It opened up that door to go like, oh no, you
And that's the
can
thing
go try
about
it out.
Anish is that I grew up to
Yeah.
know, because as I was growing up and going different places, meeting different people, and then reading, I'm an avid reader. I just love information and researching and fact finding. I was like, oh snap, that person went Anish is. That person went Anish is. Like close. And again, there were a lot of black kids that had gone there. What was it about Anna
Mm,
Shears that made it? I'm trying to work out how to explain it for people who did not live that life. Weird one, because I know there was a
mm,
place in Angel that I used to go to once in a while called St Mary's, and DJ Spoonie used to go down there and provide like mixing lessons to the kids and that kind of thing. That to me is like closer to the culture. from when we were growing up. But there was something
Mhm.
about Anna Shears that it became a magnet for a lot of working class kids from very, because we talk a lot about diversity like it's new. But Anna Shears is one of those things I can tell and say she was doing without even talking about it per se, without even really waving a flag about it. It was just normal. What can you tell me it was about Anna Shears and the, because she was very involved. I never went. I've just read a lot about her, but she was very involved. It wasn't like I've just made a building, let me make a bank. It's got my name on it. She was like personally involved. What do you, can you tell me? Because I know you would have had a personal interaction with her. What was it about her that made it
Yeah.
okay for all of these people who would not normally think about even going to this kind of place? What was it about that made it okay and made it so popular?
Yeah, I would say that, you know what it was is that when you stepped in there, it was she set values, and then values were like a respect. Like there were certain quotes that she would have up and that she would mention. There were certain individuals, that I never knew of, like Desmond Tutu and all the rest of it. But she would take quotes from them, and then she would, say it to us, and then she would have it around as well. And also, as well, you'd look at, like, when you step in there, you would have images of we would call them young professionals, but those were the individuals
Ah, the
that done really,
alumni.
really well, and
Okay.
they were on shows and stuff like that. And so you look around, you go, "Wow, okay, like that person's in EastEnders, or that person's in like a TV show I saw." And it was like when you step through that and you saw all of that, you're like, "Okay, right, cool. If I've got to be on my A game, let me, show what I can do." But then also as well, she was really personal, man. Like, you felt that she understood you, even in a class of maybe 20 people. She understood you and she knew your abilities. There was something where she could tap in and just see what it was that you had, and be able to also push you. You needed that. So I felt when I was there, those values, but also I felt recognized as well. And I felt that she gave us the confidence to go and, like, okay, you want to do this, go and do it. No, that's not good enough. And that she did have a little bit of tough love as well sometimes. But I feel like that really helped us, especially from, if you were coming from Hackney and you were coming from a particular school where, teachers weren't
Sure.
necessarily paying
Yeah.
attention to you like that. You would be in certain classes and you
What's
feel
the
like,
point?
well,
Yeah.
I don't
If I'm here,
necessarily
yeah.
need to
Yeah.
be here. I'd rather, to be fair. Whereas going there, that was the platform of, like, no,
Hmm.
you got to fix up. Now, if you want to do this, come serious, and know that the values and everything that I've set here, and also I'm giving you opportunity because there's loads of other people that want to be here. So
Do you
do
think
your
that
best.
there? No, sorry, not. Do you think? Did you come to learn while you were there or after you were there the reason why she even created this and the reason why it was so important? Because there were so many working class people. I mean, this term I'm using is there are people who, if it wasn't for Anna Shears, they didn't have anything else. They didn't have
100%.
anything else. Like there was
100.
no options for them. Did you find out,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
can you tell me why she was about that? Did she ever explain that? Was it like on the walls or in a pamphlet you got, or what do you think it
No,
was?
well, there wasn't, for me. I don't think there was anything obvious where she was, saying the reason why she wanted to do it. But I think she was more about trying
Mhm.
to elevate people, and that was her thing that made her tick. So if she could take someone who was from the ends, show them, the abilities of how to speak properly, or, like, in terms of, acting or whatever, I don't know, she really was passionate about what she'd done. And I think even to the point where she passed last year, she still continued to do that work. Even when she, moved from Anna Shears, the building, and she was doing it elsewhere, she still continued to teach acting and teach people. And, like, that Anna Shears wasn't just for young people,
Oh
there was
yeah,
also older people that was in there too. So she was, she did enjoy it. That was her passion. You could
yeah,
tell,
for sure.
when someone enjoys what they do, because it just oozes out of them. And for Anna, I never had any doubt about that. She really enjoyed it. So I felt like her whole thing was to elevate young people and get them to where they needed to go, or maybe to recognize talents that they didn't know that they had because of the environments that they
So
were in.
I'm able to, from
And
listening to you, I'm able to draw a straight line from your experience with Anna Shears to Seaton Islington to Ravensbourne, to having it kind of underpinned, and then onto what we'll be talking a bit more, which is like your business and what you're doing. But you talked about Anna Shears and your experience of having somebody see you, have some kind of instinct about what your potential is and help you achieve that potential. And there's something you said about the photography where it sounds very, very similar about you're seeing somebody,
yeah,
you're seeing there's something about them, and it's almost like giving a platform, not just for them, but for other people who
right,
could be inspired by them. Do you see
yeah,
what I've done? Does it make sense? Because it makes sense to me, and sometimes I
yeah,
feel a bit mad creating these connections,
that's-
but that's what it sounds like to me.
yeah. You're right. Because I think me being a people person and loving people, it was for me to then go, okay, well, how can I give people an opportunity to share their story or share who they are, or maybe me being able to give them a platform where they're able to share their story and be themselves will give them this kind of uplift, this confidence of going, well, yeah, okay, cool. I am this person. I do have a story that people want to hear. And it brings me to when I left
Yeah, go on,
Ravensbourne, if I
go.
could get to that um, and go like, that's when I started to really experiment and have the camera to myself. And so one of the places where I used to go to was a place called Hiatus. Hiatus was this community production company run by Andy Porter, who basically same thing. He wanted to be able to give young people in the area an opportunity to be in TV and film. And so he had, a building where you could go in. They would run certain courses and various things, but off the back of that, I was able to go, okay, well, you've got a camera there. Can I take it? I want to be able to make something with it. So when I was kind of like coming out of Ravensbourne, I used to work in a cinema, and that's where I connected like with some of my people. And one of those good friends of mine, we're still good friends today, was Lee McCarkill. Lee McCarkill basically is an editor, but he's the one who introduced me to it because I was into film. Obviously, I was working at the cinema, and so it was like,
What
yeah,
we doing at
why
this?
don't
What
you
we
come
doing at the
to
cinema?
hiatus? And just basically, it was just like my Saturday job. That was just something that I used to
What
do
were you working
and
behind
be
the
able to
tills,
like
or were you doing like putting the?
tickets. I was actually snapping tickets. So when people used to come through, I'd be like, okay, you got your ticket, cool. You ain't got your
Okay,
ticket, go. So I used to look after and maintain the screens, and that's what we used to do. But it was wicked because you would go into the screens when the films were playing and you would look at the audience and you go,
wow,
yeah, like this film is the
for
effect
sure.
that it would have on people. And because we were seeing the films over and over again, screening, we knew when
Right.
people were going to laugh. We knew when people were gonna, the emotion was gonna come out of them. There was, I think it was a certain film where there was a fight, and certain people would walk out, and we just know because of and that really exposed me as well to like, wow, look at the effect that film can
Mm,
have on an audience. Sitting in that dark space, like, was just mesmerizing, especially for some of the big
yeah.
blockbusters that were there at the time. And yeah, from there then I connected and went to hiatus, had the option to, have this equipment. And there was a photographer friend at the time. Uh, Her name was Sarah Shemshavari. And she basically had an exhibition which was about love. And she was like, hey, Ash, look, I've got this exhibition. Would you be able to like put a film, or because I know you're into film, I know you finished studying, like, would you be able to put something together? I said, okay, let's see. So my whole thing was actually to just go on the street
Okay.
and talk to people about love. And myself and David, know him as Husky, was that, you took the camera with me, and we all just went out to London and went to various places and were just asking people about what they felt about love. But that was the beginning of me going, wow, I can approach people. They
Mm-hmm.
don't know me, but they feel
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
comfortable enough to tell
Mm-hmm.
me their story about how love has affected them in their lives today. And that was amazing because I spoke to maybe, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 people, like, it was a span of 3 days. And you got to think this was before, like, well, the iPhone had just come out and stuff like that, so there was less of people filming things like that. But we just rock up to people and go like, okay, my name's Ashton, hey, I want to talk to you about love, tell me what, I've got a couple of questions. Obviously some people
Of
walked
course.
away with like, nah, no, I don't want to do that. And it would
Mm-hmm.
hurt your ego a little bit, but you just push on, because from all of that stuff would be one amazing person that would just release something. And that ability was discovered there, where I was able to just talk to people and allow them to just
And it's happening
express
it's
themselves.
happening in
And
such a
that
short
film,
space of time as well, because you can't have them for a day or for hours. So it's such a
oh,
relationship building thing, a trust thing, a certain amount of trust that's happening. Such as I find it fascinating.
yeah. And it was so fascinating that I didn't even understand the ability. It was just something I was like, oh, we've got to get this film made, man. Like, I've got to go off and speak to so many people. Let's do this. So, I spoke to loads of people, and then, took that back. And then Lee at the time was working at hiatus, and he had like, he was editing at that time. So I was like, here's the tapes. Like, let's try and put something together. And then we turned it into this 3-4 minute little film, but it sounds like a
Okay.
conversation. And it's a conversation that, we ask those questions, but like people are really expressing what they feel about love. Like, one of the first questions you find in that film was, if love was a color, what would it be? And then, people just go off and start talking. But those are the type of things that got people excited to be able to express, because I came in with a
Mm-hmm,
kind of
mm-hmm.
quirky way and just, yeah, go too hard. But that film was great because there were some people who really said some things that were very, very deep. And even if I look back at it today and I go, wow, Ash, like, I don't think you knew your power of how you could
Sure.
approach people and they don't even know you. And they just
Mm-hmm.
express themselves. So, yeah, Love Is was that first
And
opportunity for
between
me
then
to.
and I've got here the I found so many websites for you. We'll talk about that another day off camera. But when if you consider your business, I'm actually doing this, commissions and so on. So when did that kick off? When did that become? Because I think that's a you were definitely serious. You're definitely serious about your art and your craft, but to turn it into a business, because some people could do that as a passion project for the rest of their lives. It's just what they do. I don't. Some people would meet them and be like, "Oh, mate, you could make so much money from this, or you could do this and do that." They're like, "Nah, I'm fine doing this." But you decided to turn it into a business. Well, how did that come about?
Mhm. Yeah, it's a good point. So basically, I was invited to join a studio of filmmakers in Dalston. This was around like 2011, 2010 time. And off the back of that, so what it was is that there were five of us and we worked in the studio. And I was just, I had my part time job, but then I was also going in the studio and just making my films. But I would also look at the other filmmakers that were there, slightly older than me, and they were running their business. They were doing it independently. So they were doing maybe some commercial films, yeah, just like things for brands and stuff like that. So being around them made me go, oh, okay, actually, I can go and turn film into a business. Maybe there's something here where I can allow businesses to communicate their message. And one of the films that I was commissioned for the first time was on a painter called John Alvaro Caldas. And he was a painter from Manchester, a Spanish painter from Manchester. And his son approached me and was like, hey, I really love your work. And I would love for you to make a film about
Mm,
my dad. Uh, And he had all the archival or archive videos and photographs of his dad, and there was an interview that we had to do and so on. But that film was very personal, and he saw that in me, was like, I'm gonna
Do you remember
commission you to do
where he
this.
found you
And
from?
that was kind of, well, funny enough, what it was is that I think it was at Apple. I used to work at Apple previously, and he was a person that either approached me there because there was people that I would meet, and then we just got talking, and that was it really. And then he saw my work and was like, "I would like to commission you," and so that started the whole thing of business. And okay, this is my art. But I can also make films as well for businesses or for
And
people
when
or for
did
commissions.
when was that?
And so
What year was that?
that was like 20
Okay.
2011 when that happened. And then we finished that film, I think, in 2012. But on the back of that, I was also still doing my street stuff. And I think one of the biggest things that propelled me was, before that happened, I submitted one of my films to Channel 4. Like, they had this competition for a 3-minute wonder, and I was like, okay, let's put a film in. Again, same format, me going on the street, talking to people, but this time it was about manners. So I wanted to talk to people about manners and all of that, and done the same thing. And lucky enough, they accepted it, and it was like this 3-minute wonder that they took. And I remember just that whole experience of working with someone at Channel 4, producer, who came in and just, showed me. It was like, it exposed me to that world of going, wow, okay,
Yeah.
this is production, man. I'm sitting
Yeah.
here in the edit suite in Soho. This is okay, cool. And they're going to take my film and put it there. And then I could just get an insight into that world, which I think was one of the things that made me go, okay, I could do this seriously. And then obviously having those other commissions were great, but that point made me strive and go, if I can have a film that goes on Channel 4, then there are more things that I need to do here in this
So
space.
which of the commissions you had in your early career is the standout one for you?
Oof, it's a good one. I would say, ooh, I'd say
Yeah.
the home project, man.
Yeah,
Home project,
let's talk
yeah.
about the home
That
project. What is it and how did it get started?
Yeah, good point. So while I was in the studio working in Dalston, I noticed that obviously coming from Hackney and seeing the way it was changing. I think after the Olympics, I noticed that the area was changing in terms of the demographics. The way that people were coming in were different to the people I grew up with, and some of the people I grew up with were leaving. And I felt, in Dalston especially, that there was a new tribe that was coming in. And I didn't know who they were, but I wanted to create some work that expressed the way I felt about new people coming into an area.
And
And then I
how
got
did you feel?
started. To be fair, I felt upset. I felt kind of vexed. I was like, "Who are these people coming in here? Very tribal,
Because
you shouldn't be here," type
there
of thing.
wasn't
You're like, this
really
is
any warning. There was no announcement. It's just like almost waking up one day and just like, what's going on? Who? Yeah,
literally, or a
yeah,
coffee shop would show up, and you go like, "Okay, well, I maybe feel
yeah,
a little bit
yeah,
excluded. Like, I can't
yeah,
really go into this coffee
yeah.
shop because I don't know you.
And
I
that
don't know
I
these
think that's a
people."
good point. I
So
feel a bit excluded. I think one of the first times I've seen like
mhm.
I was living in Tottenham at one point, and I can't even remember. I've been trying to remember, man. There was a record shop on the corner of the West Green Road and Seven Sisters, a massive record shop.
Oh yeah,
Say
Body
again.
Records. I think it's Body
There you go.
Body
And
Records.
I've
Yeah,
been in there. I love vinyl and whatnot, and that was such an important part of that area. And then it was gone. And there's a Costa there
mm.
now. But I remember when it first dropped,
Yeah,
the Costa first dropped. It wasn't like, oh, let's go in and see what the new thing. It actually felt like it was something that wasn't for us. That's what it felt like.
yeah,
It just felt like
Yeah.
something had landed,
Yeah.
but it wasn't for us per se. It's like you used to come through a door into this space. Well, here's the new space. Come and see what it
Mm.
just felt like. And that kind of feeling is a weird one. Same thing in Hackney. I remember there was a gym that landed just down near Dalston. I used to work in the hairdressers. I was just down there just now the other day for Father's Day in a pizza called Giorgio's
Mm.
pizza with the family. And I was saying to the family, I used to work right across the road in Capria's hair studio, right across the road, which is now like a
Mm.
butcher's. But I remember back, this is 10 plus years, there was a gym that came and it was just like, who's this gym for? It was one of, and at the time, it wasn't, the price was pricey. It's like, who's this for? And then
Yeah.
a block of flats turned up, a certain kind of flats. It was like a really kind of block of flats that wasn't like the estates that known of. This was like a who's living in here, and more it felt like these kind of things were coming up, but it's just like it's happening around you, but without you,
Mm.
and you're not involved, and
Yeah, man.
you're almost in a situation where you're invisible, kind of thing. Like, and the people that are
Yeah.
there when they're passing by or whatnot are treating you away. It's like, no, but you're new. I'm not new.
My place. You're coming to my place. You're running you know what I'm saying? You got your shops and all the rest of it. You're not even acknowledging me. You know, that is how I felt in Dalston at the time, because I was in a place called Bootstrap, which was basically like this artist building. And you know, still in the studio with like four other filmmakers. We were sharing this space. It was great because we were able to kind of like get that rent great. But then we
Mm,
noticed that the rent went up. And we noticed that, you know, certain individuals were coming in that weren't really, not necessarily forthcoming. It weren't friendly, but it wasn't like, oh yeah, we're here to get to know who you are. No, we're doing our
mhm,
thing and we're over here. So it was kind
mhm.
of like a divide. And that's something which propelled me to go, well, I want to do something about that. And that's where I started the home project, because the home project for me was really trying to see the perspective, or allow everybody to see
There you
each
go.
other's perspectives on how we live in the same area, but we don't
Mm.
say hello to each other. We don't engage with each other at all. We've got our own places that where we go, but we don't come together. And so that's where I thought, okay, well, let me go and interview some people. Let me find some people, whether they are, you know, new people to the area or people who've been there for a long time. And that's where the home project came about. So it was me going to speak to everybody who, you know, let's say if you're new, old, what have you, and just trying to look at their perspective in the area and what they do and how they felt about it, and if they wanted to stay
So
or if they
what
wanted to
was,
leave.
because
They,
if I may, you've got different types of people. You said people who are old, people that are new, transitionary
yeah,
people who might be here for a while but leaving. But what was the common? Because it doesn't make for good viewing for me, or if it's like random for each person. What was the common thing you were tying together? And explain this bit about home. What was there seems to be a common thread you're asking each person. What was that?
yeah, yeah. The common thread really was, firstly, is change, how they felt about the change, what they had seen in their time being there, because there was someone who was, I think she was maybe in the 80s or 90s, and she kind of spoke about the change and what was happening. And versus if they wanted to stay or if they wanted to leave because of the environment or because they
Mm,
have to leave, you know. And I found that quite interesting, because there were people that I did interview that were like,
mm,
I'm not going anywhere, I'm staying. Versus someone who's like, oh, this, I've just got here, this place is nice, and you know, I've got this here and it, but they didn't have an idea
for
of what
sure.
was there before them. So it was really just showing the contrast
And the
of
other bit
that,
is that
really.
you've got I'm gonna say it like this, but you've got like the invaders coming in. But then I think what would happen is that through your project, you'd find that it's actually to a certain extent not their fault. This is planning and stuff that's
Yeah,
happening above all of our heads. But without your kind
that's right.
of project or without your kind of intention, we're going to remain divided. Whereas,
Mm.
actual fact, I think for your project, and I'm just guessing because I've actually not watched any, and I will be, but I'm just guessing that through your project, you probably found that there were commonalities with people, even though they weren't
Yeah.
from the ends or whatever, trying to just get ahead, trying to buid a family. It would price me out here, so I'm now here, whatever it might be. Or the people who said that they're staying, I want to stay in this area because. And I think when it comes down to the divisions that have been imposed on us through different policies or whatever, it is important to find those common that bit of common ground, because that's what I find when I look as a whole at your home project. Is it's full of all of these different people who normally wouldn't be classed together, but through your project
Yes.
there's this common sense.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. 100%, because the common thing is that everyone's living in the same space, but we're not connecting with each other. And there's people who even I would walk past, or who were just down the road from me, but had a very good story about like how they had to fight for the council or fight for certain rights back in the day that I never knew about. And I'll just see them as, oh, there's just this old lady who's there. And that for me was also an insight, but also going back to me wanting to elevate people through film. I think the home project done that for me, because I was coming into their world and they were sharing their stuff and sharing how they felt. But also it allowed the audience to see them, which I think was really important in the home project, because the home project really, after people had watched the films, it was also a conversational piece where people, after the screening, we would have a
Mm.
conversation, and you would have people from different walks of life that lived in the same area but talking. And really, I think for that project at that
And
time,
so
that's
you
what I
said it was a
wanted.
commission. It was a
You know,
commission in which way? It was a commission for who at the
so the first one was mine, so I didn't
okay.
get paid off that. That was just something that I wanted to do, and then it got good publicity off the back of it. And then I noticed in Walthamstow that because they basically had a pot of money that they were given, and that was for the Borough of Culture. So they had been awarded the Borough of Culture,
Okay.
and they had money for were in the area wanted to do certain projects. So I remember going to a space where you could find out more information about it. In the back of my mind, I was like, oh, I'm not sure that I can do this. I don't think I'm going to get no money off this. And there was one person there. She was like, "No, you could do this, man. Like, you've definitely got some stuff. So make sure you apply." So yeah, just basically applied for it and won a nice chunk of money, which for me was like, wow, I've got this chunk of money for my own project that I, came up with a few years back. And it was great because it allowed me to do more things. It allowed me to bring on a few more people. It allowed me also to step back and be like a
Okay.
creative director. Uh, I knew exactly what I wanted things to be like, and I would also commission other people to do parts of the work. Like maybe it could be to build my website or do the design or all of these different things. But I was commissioning people, but I knew in a sense what I wanted it to look like. Yeah, and then that was my first commission. So, well, proper commission, which was from my own project, and that allowed me to create 5 films on different people from the area, different walks of life. It allowed me to up the production value as
Okay.
well. So allowed me to engage with the audience as well, because there were screenings dotted around the borough. So after like what I thought was beautiful was actually bringing the
I
contributors
bet.
to the
Yeah.
screening, and they were
Yeah.
like little
Yeah. Yeah.
superstars.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
they were
Yeah.
like, that's my film, and we would have like a talk afterwards. But it was great because some of those conversations I don't think would have happened without having that screening and allowing people to come together and also see different perspectives. It
Are you
was important.
are you still
That was
doing
very,
this?
very,
Is it
yeah, yeah. So home project has moved on now. So for me, that was Hackney, Walthamstow. But what I want to do and what I'm working towards now is doing it for a city. But for me, I want to be able to step back and allow others to come on board and commission more people and create, like a platform really for people to come along. And if you're, a director, you're in the area and you want to make a film which connects with home,
And then what
let's do
would
it.
be done with the final product? What how does what you talked already about your films, and then you had it um you had screenings different places in this new evolved version of the home project, and you've got people. What do you envision would happen with the final product? Then what would happen? Would it be the same thing, screenings around, or
Yeah, it'll be the same thing. So screenings around, but one of the things that I also am good at or would like to champion is user generated content. So, I'd love to, and this is what I was doing in the previous one, but be able to deliver certain workshops to inspire people, young people to make
right,
film, but make film
right?
around the area, around home. And so that comes along with it because the films are great, yeah, but I also, it's not just a conversational piece, but it's also to enable people to get
Right,
involved in
right,
film or
right.
get involved in document. And that for me is, yeah, one of the main things. But also off the back of that, there would be screenings, but I'd also want to, take those smaller films and turn them into a bigger
Uh-huh.
film.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's one thing that wasn't really done in the last project was the fact that the actual contributors coming to the screening was not documented.
Mm.
That was an experience within itself. So for me, it would be great to have a feature, have a film which takes all of those little stories and allows it to be one whole
So
complete
beautiful,
piece.
man. So your business, what is the name of your, because that's one of your projects. What is
Yeah,
the
that's a
name of
project.
your
That's
business?
fun. Yeah. So
Yeah, there you
Real
go.
Things is my
And
is my
what's
business.
behind this name?
So Real Things for me is a bit of my culture because I'm Caribbean, and it's really just going. It's a real thing. Do you know what I'm saying? Like whatever I'm
But
gonna
it's
be
got
doing, it
many
has to be real. It has
different,
to be
it's got
felt real.
many different meanings, hasn't it? Real because not fake. I
Yeah,
think real because of the documentary
yeah,
aspect as well, to a certain extent.
yeah. That's right. Yeah, and also the people that are involved as well. So real stories, all of that. So Real Things to me is that documentary production company that what we do is we commission and have projects which are real stories that have an effect on the audience, man. They are thought provoking and they change people's mindsets. And that's the whole reason why I do what I do because I can even the projects that we're doing now, the effect that it has. So, for instance, one of the films that I previously was working on is called "To Whom Does This Belong?" And this is about it was basically a commission for Cornwall Museum Partnership and also Museum X, which is one of the first Black museums in the UK. Um, and it was just looking at items that had been lost in the museum institutions, but they were related to
Mm.
slavery and they didn't have tags or anything like that. And so it's taking an organization called Black Voices Cornwall and allowing them to see these items and touch them and hold them and how do we feel about these items, but it's very powerful. And that film has been submitted and taken to different places, but the museum institution, it's made them stand up. And I know that when people have watched that film and they are near
Mm.
close to tears or they can really feel what the experience is like for a black person to pick up one of those items, the film has done
And
its
how did
job.
you get this commission? How did you end up doing this project?
That was actually like a fluke, to be fair. So There was a friend of mine, filmmaker, he couldn't do the job, and he was like, "Oh, actually, I know someone who could do it," and he said me. And actually, he wasn't a documentary filmmaker, but he was like, Ashton, I feel would be the best person for this. So I just went in blind, like I just turned up and was like, "Here's my camera, like tell me what you want me to shoot, and I'll go and do it." But actually, it turned out to be something a lot bigger, and it was a very organic process. And I worked with another documentary filmmaker called Caroline Deeds, who was great to work with, and we actually, came up with that concept of just being able to put these items in front of people and be observational, and just capture what they think and feel, what are they saying. And we just kind of stood back and allowed it to kind of happen. But that was something that was organic. It wasn't something that we were like, oh yeah, that's what we want to do. It just kind of rolled into it. But yeah, that's how I got into it, and it very good film.
For real
Very good
things,
film.
who would you say is the who would you say, or who would you want to be the ideal customer for real things? Who is, and understand,
But
like you've said, and for a lot of creative people, there's that difficulty between what you want to do from your heart and from your soul, and then what you're doing as a transactional business. And if you manage to be able to do both at the same time, then absolutely amazing. But if you think about it from a business point of
yeah,
view, who is the perfect customer for real things?
it's a good point. Um, I would say real things really we're looking at in terms of customers would be streamers, broadcasters, um, and also cinema as well. But
Yeah,
those it's
sure.
kind of broad, but that's the customers, and being able to get commissions, but activating projects that serve us all and that feel real, and that can speak to a community of people or elevate a community of people that don't necessarily get that opportunity to be on the mainstream. And that's for me the main thing for real things is to be able to give those projects or get those projects commissioned and put them on streamers like Netflix, or have them on BBC or so on, because we
And
need
why
that
do why do
change.
we
we,
need the
we
change,
do
and what's
need.
the effect of that change? What
Well, we can see it. So I would say like YouTube has done fantastically well. Social media has done fantastically well. And it's because it's a platform where people can come along and they can make their own content and serve a particular type of audience.
But you're talking
Um,
about a particular
and there's
kind of
people,
content, because the problem isn't getting people to create content, I find, and I'm saying this as a parent, let alone as a business owner. I don't think it's about getting people to create content, because I think there's so much content. I'm not even talking about it too much. I'm just more interested in the type of content. I find that there's a lot of content which has its place, but it's so gimmicky and templated, and it's for the likes, but it doesn't really serve an educational purpose, and it doesn't encourage connection in that way. It's more like a look at me
yeah,
kind of thing. And that also leads me
yeah,
on to a
well,
thought about the importance of documentaries, full stop. Because I went to go and see just recently with the family the Bad Boys film, which was good. It was really good. It's a particular kind of film. And interestingly,
yeah,
it's a particular kind of film. Again, we'd just be talking at the top about Call of Femme. So Bad Boys is like a franchise 30 years old. But it's a particular kind of film that I don't think gets made as much now. So then when I think about different
mm,
types of medium and different types of content, documentaries. So something I can say about documentaries is like the highest type of documentary that seems to always be about is scandalous and true crime.
true crime,
That seems to
always,
be it. And then the
always.
ones that are really supposed to be coming to the fore, a lot of Richard Attenborough stuff to do with the planet, looking at us as a globe. There's
Mm,
similarities I find in your thing where you're trying to, we're people, what we think and what we feel matters, how we interact matters. to all of us, right? But it
Mm.
gets pushed down.
Mhm.
So, what have you seen from your point of view? Do you agree or do you not? When it comes down to documentaries
Yeah.
as a medium and their importance, and tied to what you're saying, which is we live in, from my professional point of view, Web 3.0 now, I think it is, or 4, I don't know. But you talked about user generated content, which has become a big thing.
Yeah.
There's YouTube, it can be your own TV channel, right? Podcasting, whatever you want. But again, you're correct. In certain
That's
ways, if we go back to the Anna Shears and then we take school now, and then you take even the cut in funding for the government when it comes down to what we would normally call media studies, then there are people
right.
who are, I think, and let's say people, maybe young people, if I go that way, who are creating content, but maybe they don't see because they've never been taught that there's a type of content that is actually authentic as opposed to them becoming another one of those people creating that kind of content. You know, like all this talk about trends that comes out, right? Whereas
Yeah.
there's some young
Yeah.
people who I
Yeah.
think it can be quite therapeutic and it can be an emboldening, give them confidence the same way it happened to you, that if they actually
Mm.
understand the medium of the documentary and also that they themselves are going through things that can help other people, just through the act of even telling their story can inspire other people, it creates this virtuous circle. I don't apologize for getting deep on it, but I think that the
No.
documentary film is something that's important to our culture, but doesn't hold as much importance as like the Marvel stuff or whatnot.
Yeah, it's very true. Documentary is niche. It's not something, like, unless it's on like a, Netflix, and it's reality, because you also got to think as well, reality TV has come on board, and purely because of, what was going on with the writers and stuff, this was another way of trying to make television. And so that's done really, really well. But it's also kind of had an effect on the audience where, we are looking singly at ourselves. And, I think social media has also had its part to play as well, where we're basically just
Right, right,
self-PRing
right,
ourselves. You know, instead of us actually looking at
right.
us as a community or people within our space and allowing them to tell their story and elevating
Yeah,
them, it's
yeah.
about me, 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 me. And I feel like that's what social media has done, and that's what, some of that reality TV has done. But you're right, documentary is there for change. Documentary is also there as well as like a, how can we say, like
For
a
sure, because we've got
time
that word
capsule.
document in there, right? Which is to record. And when
Yes.
we talk about it from my business point of view and talk to clients, I'm talking to them document everything. But that becomes because I'm asking them to document because we're going to create SOPs, standard operating procedures. We're going to create best practices. We're going to be able to delegate all that kind of stuff. But we're trying to encapsulate the best of something or the things that help us learn something so that it actually is easier to pass on.
Exactly. And that's what I think is beautiful about documentary, is because I can actually look back at my previous work and go, that was a
Hmm.
moment in time. That has changed now, and I think as a documentarian, that's what I'm also doing as well, is that I'm just capturing our society, our
Yes.
moment now,
Yeah.
under whatever, topic it might be. And it's something that, let's say that people can look back on and go, oh, look, that's what Hackney used to look like back in the day. You know what I'm saying? Or Walthamstow, or whatever it might be. But yeah, in terms of documentary, that is one part of it being powerful that way, but also it's quite powerful because it causes change and it causes conversation. And if I can take it back to my first films that I was doing, which was on the street and all the rest of it, once people had watched this or watched the films, they thought about it, they were having conversations about it. And so that brings me more closer to the reason why I do what I do, is because I care about people and I love people. And so if I can use documentary as that vehicle to spark change or to spark conversation, make people think about things,
Oh,
then I've
absolutely
done my job.
beautiful, man.
And that's what I want my work to do. I want my work to go onto those bigger platforms, to be on the Netflix and so on, or to be on BBC and so on, because it allows people to watch that and it causes an effect on them and it causes change. And how I also saw that as well is my film that I had on Channel 4 years and years ago. I remember being somewhere and someone was talking about one of the contributors in the film, and I was like, whoa, that's
You're
powerful.
overhearing
Like
somebody
the
talking
fact that
about.
someone talking about one of the contributors in my film, and that really made me go, this is what I'm here to do. I'm here to make sure that people can see this message, can be can think about it, and to cause change, and at least have some kind of thought of or awareness on the topic or subject that I'm bringing to them, you know.
What would
So
you
yeah.
what would you say, like, no, could you share a challenge that you faced when you were going through the building of your career to what it is now, and how you overcame it?
It's a very good question. I think that coming from working class background, and money's not always the biggest thing, especially getting started in the creative fields, and how people take it seriously. And actually, sometimes it kind of felt that I was going the other way, whereas other people were going this way, I was going the other way. Um, for me, that was the struggle, and being able to go, you're on a journey. It's not going to
Right.
happen overnight, but keep going, right? Because you can see the destination. You can see these little spurts of things that you do that are building up, but you know they are effective. You know what your work is doing. And I think I always struggled with that. I always struggled with going, I need to have lots of
Did
money,
you
or I
ever
need
did you
to
ever
be
feel like
able to,
then
like,
when you're going through that? Because I know exactly what you're talking about, and from an entrepreneurial point of view, when you're doing something that you know innately is going to become something big, you've had experiences, um, first-hand experience of how something you've done has created something in the world around you. You've had feedback from people. You're like, wow, this can be done. It can be great. But then you've also got beside you just life and adulting and bills and stuff. And that is a challenge. Did you ever have a point where you thought to yourself, let me just give this up and get a, a job,
yeah, man.
even though
Many,
it's not
many,
that easy to
yeah, many times,
do?
many times. Yeah, I had that a few times. I think it was out of frustration. I think it was out of just like,
Yeah.
I'm not seeing what I see straight away. What's going on? So at that point in life, I feel like I was, just working jobs and doing things that necessarily wasn't fulfilling me. But I was, detached from what I was doing, but I wasn't necessarily happy about it. And but there was always something that always kept me going. I'm always doing something. Like my friend says to me, Ashton's always doing something. He's always got like projects. He's always doing something. So I'd always keep that going on in the background. And I'll remember when, I was talking to my dad and I said, look, Dad, I feel like I just need to let this go. I feel like I just need to go and get my job and whatever they get in that. And he was like, no,
Mm,
you keep going. You keep doing what you're doing. You're on a journey. Keep going. And yeah, and I had, another close friend of mine say the same thing as well. It was just like, no, just keep going because what you're doing is great. And I think the biggest thing for me is my parents. You want to be able
for
to
sure.
make them proud. And I think in your mind you might go, oh, I haven't got this and I haven't got that, and like I want to do this for them, but actually, what I wasn't seeing was that those milestones of me making my films and the effect that it had and what was going on there, they were very proud of that. They're very proud of me being independent and doing my thing, and any way that they could support me to keep going on, they would do that. Um, and that was for me a thing that has kept me going, and I'm wanting to go deeper into film and TV production and wanting to own it and having a space that I can go. If anyone else is in the same
For
place
sure.
as I was, come
It's
along,
it's
man.
it's a
Let's,
beautiful
what I'm
thing, man.
saying?
I see it from another angle as well. So the same way that you go to people whether or not it's on the street and they tell their story, I think there's a realization you must go through where they're telling their story and through they see themselves through your lens, and they realize that, oh
Yeah,
shit, what I've been through and what I've been doing actually isn't insignificant. It's actually quite major. I didn't believe it, but the more I'm going through this process with this guy, the more I'm realizing it is significant. So there's that. But what I find
that's
interesting
right.
listening to you talking about your parents is that they're doing the same thing for you. So maybe you're going
Mm.
through things that you're like, yeah, it's a ting, but it's not really a ting, is it? Because look, I've not got the Benz, or I've not got this, or I've not got that. But they've done a good job
Yeah,
of documenting
yeah,
you and feeding it back to you to say, nah, look at the stuff you've done. You're actually, they've elevated you in that same way.
yeah. They have, they have, and it goes all the
Yeah,
way back to Anna Shiz. They allowed me to go. Okay, we see how much you want to do
the
this.
belief in you.
Go,
So, so
go and do it.
where you are now with your business and your career, what comes next? What are your next, what are you seeing for the future? You've talked a little bit about the youth and bringing that in. Is that a really big part of it for you, the next generation? Or
Yeah, definitely. The next generation is definitely part of it because I can't do it by myself. I get inspired when I
mm,
work with young people, and to be able to take a young person and the same opportunities that I had in terms of being at hiatus or going to college and studying, there are others out there that should be given that opportunity and will, for me personally, be excellent to work with, excellent collaborators, and that's what I love is that new energy and what they bring. But that's what I want to be able to harness. I want to be able to take a young person who has talent and be able to allow them to work on productions, um, and create their own pathway as well as collaborating with me. So I think that I feel quite strongly about that. It's like full
for sure,
circle,
for
really.
sure. So if
Yeah,
somebody was curious about or has always felt that it's something they want to get into, because I think it's the same thing that I was reading about Stormzy and the Murky FC, and what he was saying was there's a lot more jobs than being a footballer when it comes down to the profession of football, right? And
that's
I think it's the same thing when it comes to, I suppose, what the kids call entertainment in a nutshell, right? Same way you went to Anna Shears and they would have laid out the different parts of whatever the system is or the ecosystem is, and then you're like, actor, nah, maybe that job. I think there's also that part where it's important for somebody like you to be able to help people understand the different parts of the business per se, and
that's
um,
right.
that again, I think you were in a situation where you were able to test and experiment and see and try and why not, and eventually find something you love. But that experience of experimentation and discovery is super important to our development, not just as young people, I also think as adults, because we can become stagnant, right? We lose that creativity. So for people who, young people, or even, I've got three sons at different generations, right? So 28, 21, 16. If you take those ages and you've got different people who are thinking about, if it's something I could do, or I've always been somebody who likes art, or I've always liked people, like doing, I've liked watching series, but I'd also like to do something with that. My son, for example, the oldest one, is creating a video game right now. Okay, what? And he's also writing a book, huh? And he talks a lot about um, storyboarding, that kind of thing, and creating films, and that's something he wants to do. What would you advise those people to do, especially in connection to you? What would you advise them to do?
Get as much insight as possible from those professional environments, because I feel like if you are exposed to a film set or game development, even if you could just be there and just do some work experience for like 2 weeks or what have you, that impact of being in that environment will inspire. And I feel like I've been, privileged enough to be in certain places and see the way things have run and go, oh, okay, I see. Oh, that's the way you do it. Oh, that's how a professional will do that. I feel that that's really important. Is being close to those insights, being close to those industries in production, because we don't get to see that a lot. How many people get to
I
go on a
think there's
film
a lot of
set?
people who don't believe that it's accessible. Is my point of view. I saw an ad recently which was to do with mate, I can't remember. There's a whole crew of people who, I think it was like carrying equipment or something, but the ad was about young people doing this job because they're going to be on the film set and get exactly the experience you're talking about. So it wasn't because, I think what you're talking about there is something I talk to my sons about. And when we talk about their friends and their generation, is people can be too quick to go from this step all the way to, for what we're talking about, the director's chair, for example, and completely miss out
Yeah,
that
yeah,
the reason why you deserve the director's chair or getting into it is because you've actually gone through all of these different other experiences. And it feels like we're in a world where
yeah,
we just want to get to the last step as opposed to enjoy the steps along the way. So this ad I saw was saying, you want to work in film, will join a crew or something like that. Join the actual film crew
mm,
and be around, and
mhm,
you're not only, because it was a whole course. You're not only will we teach you about it, but you'll absorb things indirectly that will help you on your way to
yeah.
actually getting that film career you're looking at, kind of thing.
Definitely, you've got to start off humble. You got to put the ego to one side, because I even remember like some of the film sets that I went on, I had to make tea. I
Yeah,
had to run around and go and get something for the director and stuff like. But it was an opportunity for me to be in the industry and be exposed and see the way they made things, which had a real big effect on me. But some people will be like, "Oh no, like I can pick up a camera. I've got my
okay,
phone. I can go and
there
make
you
a
go.
film. Why do I need to? I don't need you." You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that is really important, to kind of look at each area of film and understand it. Every part, every layer, every department is very important to a film. And I think while I was at film school, that was really cemented in my mind, because it was just like, oh, like sound is really important, and so you respect everything, every down to even the person who's, I don't know, running around and grabbing stuff or whatever it might be. But really understand it, because I feel, the digital landscape is fantastic. We have access to everything. We can shoot, we can edit, we can do all these different things. But do we
No.
really know process? Do we really know about story?
Or
Do we know
collaboration,
about like how
because I
to?
think with a lot more when it comes down to the software and everything else that comes out, there's this push towards, I don't really need anybody else. I just need to push a few buttons, input a bit of information, and I can do it all by myself. And I think from
Yeah,
listening to you, there's also, back to your home project, you still are talking about the importance of community or collaboration, of every person matters in some way, is connected, and is create is contributing to the whole. And that is important.
that's right.
Society, community, whatever you like, is
Yep.
important. And the way you just broke down the layers of like the production and all of that is beautiful, because I think that's what we've moved away from, is towards that kind of individual way of looking at things, that actually, what do I need you for if you're not doing this for me, as opposed to, we're just better doing things together.
It's true, but that's how we are as a human race. Like, we need to be together in order to make things work. You can't do things all by yourself. And I know that we're in this digital landscape now. We've been here for a while, but really these devices, they're great. And not to go on a tangent, but they are great. But they also are
For
slightly
sure.
isolating as well. We do need to kind of go, yeah, let's come together, let's collaborate. Let's work. together instead of trying to do things in our bedroom by ourselves. That's cool. You can do that. But there is also other people like you that also have the same thing and want to achieve the same thing.
So
Connect.
I've got one more question for you. Well, I've got two, but the first one is if people want to find out more about you, and definitely I think if parents, because I'll be pushing this around to parents and just getting that out there. But if people want to find out more about you, find out more about the home project, where should they go to? What would you suggest they do?
Yes. Yeah, so you can go to www.ashtonjohn.com. That is my website. That's where you can see some of the home films and all the other pieces of work that I've done. If you do want to find out or see the last home project, that will be www.homefilmproject.co.uk. Go ahead and take a look at those. Also, I'm on social as well. So Ash 2020 was a great year. Didn't know that COVID was going to happen that year, but I'd already had that long time ago. But yeah, that's where you can just see some of the stuff that I put on Instagram and so on. But yeah, those sources are great. So I would say, yeah, the website, www.ashton.com.
I'll put all those
That's where you'll
links
find
in the
everything.
show
And
notes. Yeah. All of them will there,
yeah,
all
get
of them
in
be there.
contact.
So okay, so now we've got the bonus question. So you need to pick a number between 1 and 18.
Okay.
11.
11.
If you were to describe your journey as a song, which song would it be and why?
Whew, Lord. It's a hard one. Oh wow, that's a hard one. Wow, 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 wow. Okay, if I was to think of a song, don't know. It's weird. I don't. Michael
Go
Jackson's
on.
come to my mind. I don't know why. I would say. Oh God, that's a hard one. Oh, that's hard. I don't know why I'm thinking. I don't even know why I'm thinking of this tune. But maybe because I heard it recently. But Michael Jackson's "They Don't
Go
Really
on.
Care About Us."
That's a powerful
Um,
song, man. That's,
that's a very
the
powerful song,
video
right?
is, boy.
Wicked, right? Um, Yeah, because when I think about that song, I don't know what Michael was saying and everything is really just
Definitely.
awareness, like trying to open the audience's eyes to stuff, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like I think that that's my thing is I'm trying to that's why I'm using documentary. That's why I love documentary is for awareness, but also to make people wake up and make and think about things, and I think that that's if I was to kind of relate a song,
That's
it would be
amazing,
that
man.
one.
I thought
And
that wasn't going to work. I thought you weren't about to, but that makes total sense to me. And I think if you take those lyrics, they don't really care about us. And then you were to kind of elongate it, I would say they don't really care about us. And those are the people who should care about us. And also they don't care about us in the way that we should care about ourselves. Because even if you do start looking
right.
at the people who should be politicians, wherever you care, and my kids were at school, sometimes I run into teachers who you can tell do not care about them, right? But then, as much as
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
go to the
Right.
school and just raise holy hell, it's also helping my kids understand that it would be great if that teacher did care about you, but you also need to care about yourself and you need to understand that we care about you. So I think that's a great song for you because even though there are people around you, people that you just pass in the street and then you put under a lens and in front of a lens, they are people who may feel like they nobody cares about them. That's what exactly happened for your home project, from what I've understood. Those were people who were watching things change in the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
same way that you did, but had been there for a lot longer than you did. And until you came to them,
That's
yeah, and actually showed that you cared, and then showed that as
yeah,
long as
that's
we
right.
get to a point where once we get to a point where we put this in front of other people in the screening, you're also going to see, contributor, please be a guest, that other people care as well. So I think that's a great
That's right.
choice, mate.
Great. That's great. He's so well. Case, wow. Like that just, I don't know, that just came to my mind. Came up my
That's a big one. Look, Ash, that was. I'm so honored, man. Really, from the day dot that I met you
great.
and I
Thank
spoke to
you.
you and I said to you, I would just love to interview you. This is exactly what I had. I think this is going to be, for people who want to be involved in film and whatever, it's going to be interesting for them. But I think your the main thread of what you've said is even, and we didn't touch on it. We didn't touch on it, but I'm aware of it without us having to touch on it. Even though you're going through your own shit, you still have love for other people, because I think
Yeah,
that's what has happened
always.
to a lot of us is that we're going through so much shit. We're almost finding it's okay to not give a shit about anybody else because I've got my stuff going on. We don't start thinking about what can I do to elevate myself and also elevate others. And there's a guy that, there's a philosopher, whatever, Jim Rohn, who said, if you want to become a millionaire, then help a million people become a millionaire. And I love that kind of thing. And I don't see you doing this for transactional reasons or to become ridiculously rich. It reminds me of exactly the reason why I want to speak to people like you in this like podcast, is because there are people like you who are born to do it. As Craig David said, like, you are just people who they remind me of this word vocation. There's something like when you're thinking about giving up, you didn't talk about it, but I wanted to
Mm.
say to you that feeling you have to continue is like it's bigger than you. Something's pulling you along,
Yeah,
saying, get up,
trust me.
let's go again.
Yeah,
And you
trust me.
can't fully explain it to anybody. Somebody's like, but why don't you just go over there? They think you're talented to just take that salary. And you're like, nah, I've got to go this way. I don't know. I can't see it all. But that's the whole beauty of people like you who are doing things, who are touching other people, is that you don't actually need to see all of the road. You just need to like see the next step
That's right.
illuminated and just keep on following with absolute faith. And while you're moving along, touching these other souls as well. And I can't even, you just talked about creating a version of the home project where you have another little, like, I like Pulp Fiction because of that whole idea of telling a story from different angles. But when you're talking
Yeah,
about the
that's right.
contributors and then, following them along and documenting that, for me, it's beautiful because I can only, I'm so guaranteed that there's people who you've put in front of a lens, taken them through that process of answering those questions, and it's changed their lives. That film
Yeah,
you were talking about, because it would have
yeah,
been local people who had learned something about the person they'd always seen. I can't understand why that wouldn't spark conversations the next day when they saw each other, which means that there's a fabric in that community that wasn't there before. That's it's been built up and
cool.
can be built upon. Absolutely
Yeah,
beautiful, man. So I really thank you for the work you're doing. Really thank
no,
you for the work you're
thank you.
doing, and I really thank you for taking the time to share a bit of your life and everything you've been doing with me and with the listeners today. Yeah.
Yeah, much appreciated, Case, man. It was a great experience, man. Wow, that was the time flew though, because I didn't even notice the time. Wow, it's like 12:04. Like it went so quickly, but that was fantastic, and yeah, you're great, man. It's great to be interviewed by
Oh,
you, man.
thank
Very,
you,
very
thank
cool.
you, thank you,
Very cool.
thank you. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of the Attract Sell Nurture podcast. I will see you on the next episode. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. This podcast is for anyone who is passionate about making a difference through their work and wants to learn from others doing exactly the same. It's about the journey of creating a service business that not only generates revenue, but also contributes to the betterment of lives and the world around us. So if you are someone who has a story to tell, someone who is making waves in your field, or someone who has unique insights on the synergy between service businesses and societal transformation, I would love to hear from you. I'm always seeking amazing guests to feature on this show. So if you or someone you know fits this description, please apply via the link in the comments or the show notes of this episode.